So good morning, I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our April edition of Wake Up Newport. Got a great program here for you, but before we get going, I do want to make a few introductions, and we have a few people to thank. So first, I want to thank our sponsor, Credit Union of Southern California. They have a branch here in the library. This is actually the last month of their one-year sponsorship, and last week I got the news that they're going to re-up for another full year, so glad to hear that. Big round of applause for the Credit Union. Dee Dee, why don't you come up and say a quick word here? Tell us what you guys do up there.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. Credit Union of Southern California is a full-service financial institution serving Orange County, LA County, and San Bernardino County. And as Steve mentioned, we have a full-service branch upstairs here in the library, right across from the cafe. So if there's anything that you need, please come and see us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. So if you haven't had one yet, the burritos here this morning were sponsored by Cappy's Cafe. Who's been to Cappy's Cafe? Cappy? Oh, at least half the audience. Cappy's is a West Newport institution. I don't know how long it's been there. I used to know the previous owner, Nick Panagakis, real well. But it's under new management, and I think Bob Phillips is with us this morning. Bob, why don't you come up here and tell us quickly what new and different things are happening down there at Cappy's. I still see the lineup in the morning on Saturday and Sunday, so you must be doing something right over there.
That hasn't changed much. Yeah. Thank you, guys. We're glad to be here. Anyway, Cappy's Cafe is under new ownership. Our new owner, David Dukes, he's chairman of the board for Chalk Hospital. He's a veteran himself. We, on Memorial Day, any vet that is in the place, we feed for free. We do private events. We're open 365 days of the year. We open at 6 a.m. We close at 3. We're open Wednesday nights until 8. We do prime rib night. We do salmon. We do halibut, scallops. So we do regular full menu. We do catering, any type of food that you want, not just breakfast. So if you guys have any kind of event, no matter what size, we can do. If you're just doing something at the house and you want something done for you, we can do that. You know, trays for your boats, whatever. So anyway, come see us. We'd love to have you. We're glad to be here. Thank you, Steve.
So, Bob, I'm a veteran of the Boy Scouts. Could I? No? We have a uniform. No? Okay, sorry. Oh, well. I want to invite someone else up here. If you've noticed, there's a lot of young adults here with blue blazers on that say DECA, and they're with the over at Harbor High School, and it's a business club, and well, I'm not even explain what it is because I'm going to ask Sheridan to come up here quickly and explain what it is. Also, she has an opportunity for you business people out there that you might be interested in. Sheridan.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm here today as a teacher of Newport Harbor High School. We have a full business program at the high school level at Newport Harbor, and DECA is a student leadership organization. Its mission is developing leaders and entrepreneurs. And what we're doing is hosting here in Anaheim this year the international conference. And so our students have competed at the Southern California level, at the state level up in Silicon Valley, and now the international conference, which will host 18,000 competitors from all over the United States, Canada, Spain, Mexico, Guam, Puerto Rico. And so what they're looking for are just business people like you to come and volunteer one day of your time to serve as a judge. I do have flyers on the back table. It's an online, registration to serve as a judge for one day. Students have been working on a marketing plan for an entire year or a community service project, and they want to present in front of someone real, a real business person. Some have case studies that they read on the spot, and they prepare an answer and then give a presentation. And what they're trying to do is just elevate their skill set and be prepared for the next level. If you want to be completely blown away by the future of this next generation and have your faith in millennials, if you're worried about that restored, please come and volunteer on this day. You will have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan. I think, is there any of the FBLA kids from Corona del Mar here? Yeah, so FBLA is the Future Business Leaders of America. That's the program over at Corona del Mar High School, so thank you for coming this morning as well. And then why don't I just quickly introduce some of the VIP types that are here with us this morning. So first off, Diane Dixon. Diane, former mayor Diane Dixon, current councilwoman. Councilman Will O'Neill. Councilman Jeff Herdman. And I just saw him walk in, so now we have a quorum. Councilman Scott Piotr, sorry. Keith Piotr, I kind of conflate the two of you. No, former councilman and former mayor Keith Curry. But I know, really. Conflate, it's like a new word. I never learned that in high school, but you watch CNN or Fox and conflating is all over the place. With the Irvine Ranch Water District, Pierce Swan. Our Community Development Director, Kim Brandt. Kim's actually going to be our speaker next month, right, Kim? So if you want to hear about all things Newport, what's going on, all the projects and stuff, she's going to be talking about that. Mariners Mile, too, I think you're going to cover. A hot topic in town now, Mariners Mile. And hopefully I didn't forget anybody who walked in at the last minute. Thank you all for coming. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and introduce our speaker. So Diane Harkey is a woman I've known for a number of years now, I guess. You were a councilwoman, I think, originally down in Laguna, Dana Point, and at the same time I served on city council. But Diane, she decided to plow forward and continue with government work. And so in 2014, she was elected to be our representative to the State Board of Equalization, covering First she was First, she was an assemblywoman representing the 73rd District, and then in 2014, she was elected to the Board of Equalization. Now I've got it. She won her election with over 61% of the vote and is proud to represent 5 million constituents in the counties of Orange, Riverside, San Diego, Imperial, and the southernmost portion of San Bernardino County. There's only 5 members, so they have to cover the entire state, so it's a huge territory that she has to cover. In February of this year, she was elected chairwoman of the board, and I think that also gets you a position on the Franchise Tax Board, if I'm not mistaken. Great. And then Diane, I'm sorry? The Mystery Board? Is that where they make the mystery meat? No? Mystery Board. She graduated cum laude with a degree in economics from the University of California in Irvine, right around the corner. Enjoyed a successful 30-year career in corporate finance and banking, working in good and bad economic climates with individuals, small business owners, and leaders of publicly traded companies. Helped her form the pragmatic business perspective that she brings to the Board of Equalization. I'm probably just going to let her say the rest. So thank you for coming, Diane, and welcome.
Well, I usually prefer walking around. It gets me going, but I will stand here because I want to be sure you hear everything I have to share with you. How many of you have interacted with the Board of Equalization? Okay. How many of you understand what your elected representative does? See, that's the problem. There's where I need to bridge this gap. Okay, first I want to thank Steve very much for his gracious introduction and the Board of Directors. I guess there's Joe DuBois, Craig Batley, David Robinson, Kimberly Tavares, and Marie Case. Thank you very much, and thanks for every business and every student and teacher that are here today. You heard that I was in banking and corporate finance for over 30 years. I started with Security Bank in 1971, and I left banking in 2001, having finished my career with Bank of America. I then decided that I would dabble in politics because I helped my city incorporate in 1989. The city of Dana Point and the city of Laguna Niguel incorporated in 1989. At that time, I had a young child, and I walked the streets literally for our incorporation, and I was also president of my community association and other things. So that's how I kind of got into politics. I've always been involved, but really involved. We formed PACs, we supported candidates, we did all the things that people do, and I continued to do that until 2004 when I decided to run for my city council. I thought, well, they could use some, I've got banking, finance, I understand development. We were in the development phase, so I thought my services would be welcome. Politics is a whole different world, doesn't run like a business, but it is manageable. I was, in 2006, 2007, I became mayor of my city, and in 2008, I went to the state legislature, the California State Assembly. At the Assembly, what I really learned about was how to make relationships, because as a Republican, you don't really set the agenda. You can curb, you can trim, you can have your input, but you don't, the agenda is set by the majority party. And so if you've got the majority party, you make the rules, set the agenda, determine who's on what committees, determine what goes through committees, determine every bill. You are in control when you're the majority party. And that's Congress as well as Senate in the US, and it's also in the state capitol. So it really matters who's running the majority. They have the power and the levers. But for a non-majority member, you can make some really close friendships and relationships, and I did. With the most left of the left, I made relationships. We got along. You know, we got along on personal basis. So what I did is always try to find those areas of agreement and work with that and help them, support them with where we agreed. And we have a lot of areas of agreement, a lot of big areas of disagreement. But what I do at the Board of Equalization, of which I represent 5 counties, and it's actually 9.5 million people, because there are close to 40 million people in the state of California. The Board of Equalization and your elected representatives, actually there's 5 of us. There's 4 of us elected in districts, and then the state controller. We implement, collect, and assess over 39 taxes and fees for the state of California. But we were originally formed to oversee county assessors. Back in 1879, the county assessors were doing some funny things with property tax assessment. So the Board of Equalization was formed to equalize property tax procedures as well as assessments across the 58 counties, because that's the only tax we had. We now have a huge component of tax, which is sales and use tax, which probably most of you know the board from. We also do assessments for anything that crosses county lines, like cell tower or cell, providers, railroads, utilities. That's the Board of Equalization that does those property tax assessments. We have quasi-judicial authority. When you come to the board with a tax appeal for either use tax or for franchise tax board, we are the judge. We're the last administrative stop. Okay, and we have made huge successes this year and last year for a lot of taxpayers that thought that they had no way out. 2008 was really, really hard for a lot of people and what followed on. A lot of companies went bankrupt. A lot of former owners of companies were being pursued even to this day as a responsible person liability for the taxes due from the corporation. And a lot of them have lost everything. So we've been able to really make some impacts for people that come to the board hearings. We have ruled on 1031 exchanges. We can write precedential opinions. That was a real biggie because it establishes that when you change the ownership, as long as you've completed the exchange, it doesn't matter. If you followed all the federal 1031 rules, for tax, if you complete the exchange, it doesn't really matter what your intent is to do with it afterwards. And this is where the FTB was kind of holding up all of the, or it's claiming taxes in essence for this, the Franchise Tax Board. For those students, the Franchise Tax Board is the income tax arm of the state of California. So it's like the IRS of California. So we have oversight of, because I'm elected as a chair, I now get to sit on the Franchise Tax Board, which is the state controller, Department of Finance, Michael Cohen, and me. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that because now I get to find out what they do. We also, the Board of Equalization, yeah, it's true. The Board of Equalization is the regulatory arm on tax policy. We write the regulations to implement what the legislature passes. I don't have any say over what they pass, but our board is required to implement it. So we can change regulations. We can adjust them. We can make them more business friendly. That's what we've been doing a lot of. I am chair of the Business Taxes Committee, and all the regs that we want to change or revise or whatnot come through the Business Taxes Committee. So we've made some really good strides. We have let me get my list here. Oh, medical devices. That's a big industry in Orange County, medical device industry. We've revised the regulations such that anything that is implanted and is there for more than 6 months and is not just to cure a problem, but actually monitor a problem, is not subject to sales tax. That's made a big difference in the medical device industry, saves them some money. Responsible person liability, I kind of got into that, where you know, you were a responsible person of a corporation or business, and in fact, you know, the taxes were left unpaid years ago, and now, let me tell you too, we do cold case files, so taxes never go away. Don't ever think you're through until you're through. But they will, you know, exhume it and then come and as long as there's not a statute of limitations, try to get you to pay for it. And sometimes that's a good idea. Other times when you're a bookkeeper or somebody and just moving on with your life, that was a very bad idea. And we found that quite honestly, a lot of really good people that had no control or authority, they may have known about the liability, but they didn't really have the ability to pay it or didn't have the authority to pay it, were being pursued. It can ruin your life, place a lien on your house. I mean, you know, it's really been traumatic for a lot of people, especially coming out of this last recession. So we were able to change that to ensure that 4 strong criteria are there, that you had the ability, the knowledge, you had the wherewithal, and the authority to pay, and you knew you just didn't, and you did something else with it. So in that case, you know, you do have a responsible person, but we've been able to tighten that up so it doesn't go after everybody. It's not just a scatter shot. Refunds over 100,000, which probably doesn't apply to many of you, but there are a lot of companies had refunds over 100,000. They used to have to come to the board hearings. Board hearings take sometimes 5 months to get scheduled. We have cut that off because I've never known a staff person to give a refund that's not due. So there has never been where the board rejected a refund. So they don't have to come to the board anymore except a listing of what's being done. Observation tests. How many of you have a restaurant or something here? No? Okay, we had a restaurateur here. Well, restaurants get audited quite frequently, and that's because they're big cash businesses, and so want to check that they just get audited a lot. And sales and use tax laws are extremely complex. You know, sit down, stand up, take to go, hot, cold, Pepsi, tea. It's all, you know, there's carve-outs. And so it's very confusing for somebody starting a new business. So a lot of times they'll be audited and there'll be issues happening. And so their books or records are unclear, so they have an observation test. Well, what was happening is the auditors were going in, and the auditors have flexibility. It depends on who's looking at what and what's subjective and what's not. And so we established rules that if you're going to do an observation test, you're actually going to sit. You have to do it for so many days, so many times. It can't be just special when you can pop in and out. We don't want to nail people. We want to be sure that if there's a problem, our audits are going the right direction. And we also the Board of Equalization only audits like 1% of all of any business in the state of California, 1%. So we rely very much on voluntary compliance. Voluntary compliance is huge, and most people want to do the right thing. I believe that, I see it, I know that. And we would not be able to do what we do if on 1% audit if we didn't have voluntary compliance. So we also hold workshops, seminars, business taxes, business seminars, you know, nonprofit seminars. The Board of Equalization comes out with all of the authorities, even EDD, FTB, BOE, and probably your chambers and other things to help you maneuver your way through, or at least know who to call. And I think that's very, very important. Let me see, what else can I say here? We really make a difference. Really make a difference. Your Board of Equalization, I have basically 12 staff people, 2 down in San Diego, 3 in San Diego, information officer, and 1 professional auditor and 1 district director. I have a counsel, a tax attorney in Irvine. I have an auditor in Irvine that has been with the board for over 30 years. When these people, and then I have office up in Sacramento because there's almost 2,500 people in the building on N Street that is the administration and all the special fees and taxes programs. So, but our people in the district work for you. If you have a problem, if you have an issue, call us. Call us early, call us often. When you get into a tax issue, it doesn't get better. If you get a notice, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get more confusing and more complex. We are your taxpayer representative, and we can usually, with my experienced staff, I mean, I have just super stellar people. You've all met Carissa, I think. She comes to these events. Carissa is one of our information officers, and she can help you or connect you with anyone. But we have really highly skilled professional Board of Equalization members that have overseen the operations, understand the laws, and work for you on your behalf. When they go into the bureaucracy with your issue, they go in with knowledge and they understand your issue and they know how there's options for you. We resolved last year or the year before, in the last 2 years, over 500 taxpayer issues. We've removed liens, we've gotten lien releases fast, we've gotten sales taxes, assessments reduced. We got a refund for a car dealer who you all know and very, very well here in the Newport area. He was having trouble getting a refund for $90,000. My staff looked over his returns and said, hey, you're really owed about $400,000. Got him his refund. We work with the governor's GoBiz department, so if there's anybody that qualifies for some of the tax credits, we can help you with that. We also work on manufacturers' exemptions. My staff will help you if you have any questions on manufacturer. They can run you through the process and actually help you fill out the application. Those things get very confusing. We have great experienced people, and they're on your side. They're working on your side every day. They go through all of our tax cases before they come to the board, and they eliminate just about half of them. And the taxpayers, you know, they call every taxpayer that's scheduled for a hearing, and they try to get their side of the story. And then they try to ask for them what they need, what my staff would need to help them make their case. It's a very complex issue. Not everybody has professional advice. And so I encourage you, if you leave with nothing else, if you have any tax or fee problems, if you have anything at all, quite honestly, going on with the state, we try to get results for you. I did have a doctor in my area, actually lived across the street. I ran into his wife at the Gelson's Market. And, hi, how are you? And she says, oh, healthcare, pardon, but healthcare sucks, is what she told me. And I went, what's happened? You know, oh dear, here I am shopping. And so she began to tell me how they had waited for a long, long time for their Medi-Cal reimbursement from the state. And in fact, one of her husband's practices could no longer pay the lease payment. They were thinking of shutting the whole thing down. He was working, you know, a second job up at Long Beach, had his own practice, and he had bought this, and she was just stressing out, you know, didn't know about her house payments, everything else. I called, I decided I'd handle this one myself. So I called a legislator that I knew, a senator that happened to be really involved in all of the Medi-Cal and Medicaid things. And so I said, you know, so she referred me to somebody that was in charge of it. That somebody referred me to somebody else. That somebody referred me to somebody else. And that somebody referred me to an 800 line. So I said, well, I'm not going to call that 800 line. I called the governor's office, spoke with Nancy McFadden, his chief of staff. I left a message for her. She called me within 24 hours, gave me someone's name that was going to call me. That someone called me. I gave them all of the coding and the information that they needed, because my neighbor had shared that with me, and they had their check by the end of the week. So we save lives and businesses daily. It happens all the time. We keep people, we had a restaurateur that was assessed $300,000 in an audit. We put a new set of eyes on it, just ask. We can't control these things, but we can ask them to look at it maybe this way if it works. And in fact, liability went to zero. There are different ways. Things are subjective, and you have to understand that tax law is very confusing. It's subjective. If you don't have a strong advocate doing things for you legally, call us, even if you do. We can probably save you a lot of money on the other side. And I tell your tax advocates too and your attorneys, call us. We'll tell you how to present for the board or how to present your case. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Annie? Yes.
Hi, my name's Steve McNally, and thank you very much. This may not be for you, but you might know where I would go for it. County supervisors keep talking about we only get the 6 cents back from the state, and we put all this money up there. And our county operates differently than a lot of other counties as far as corporate foundation money coming in here and all that kind of stuff. So I looked at the LAO, I tried to figure it out. Can you direct me to a place that shows me each county, what they send up and what they get back?
Yes, I can. I'm your girl. The Board of Equalization actually distributes, sets up that. But let me tell you something about that. I was involved in 2008, 2010, when they did the alignment, the public safety realignment, and all that other stuff. And then I was also involved when you may recall there was a big brouhaha over the state was suing. No, the county was suing the state, I believe it was, over like a $50 million. Because when Governor Brown did the public safety realignment, we had swapped for the bankruptcy debt. We had swapped some of our property tax monies for that because at the time, the bondholders that were financing the county determined that the VLF, the vehicle license fees, was a more stable source of income than the property tax. So we worked out an agreement with the state to swap that portion. Well, when Governor Brown decided to do his realignment and realign all our vehicle license fees, he took that from us too. It was not carved out. So there was a big thing going on. It lasted 2 years, finally got settled. And when I was in the legislature, I got very, very educated on this. Property tax stays in the county, but in 1978, after Prop 13, in 1979, Governor Brown, Willie Brown, who was then Speaker, and Bill Lockyer got together, who was then, I don't know what Bill was probably Senate Pro Tem, President Pro Tem of the Senate at that time. He was later Treasurer, Controller, everything. Anyway, they got together to figure out how to do the distribution. And I got this from Bill Lockyer's mouth. Since Orange County started Prop 13, we decided they don't like taxes, they're not going to get any. And that is what I got from him. And because this is in statute, it has haunted us forever, and it's very difficult to change because the whole alignment from every county is set out from 1979, and there's been very few counties that have been able to change it. So in Orange County, for instance, this is from memory, 6 cents goes to the county, 22 cents goes to special districts, 62 cents goes to education, and the rest goes to the cities. And I think that's about 10 cents, something like that. Anyway, what that means is that when you have a county or a city county like San Francisco, which is a city and a county, and incidentally only about 800,000 people, all of their city county goes to one place. They also got a bigger allocation, a huge allocation. I think they have like a 40 cents that goes to education. And the ticket about the education is that's the only thing that gets backfilled by the state. Everything else does not get backfilled. So if you're short on that education funding, you get Prop 98 funding. And because we give 62 cents, we don't get much. Because they give like 40 cents, they get a big backfill. They also get, I think there's something like 40 cents, I think, that go to their city county. So they have a lot of city county money. We don't have much. And LA has, I think, 24 cents to their city county. and I can't remember. San Diego, I know, has 13 cents to their city, to their county, rather. And they have also 62 cents goes to their education, but they only have 14 cents that goes to their special districts. So that's out of every property tax dollar. So
This is the allocation of the 1% property tax.
that is the property tax. That is the property tax. And let me just explain this too, because this is important to understand, that we in Orange County are constantly bickering and fighting over public safety and labor union money and all this kind of stuff, which is, you know, a good conversation to have. But when you consider that the county, and this is Diane proselytizing here, when you consider that the county only gets 6 cents and their big mandate is really Health and Human Services, which is mandated, and they get, you know, federal and state funding from, and public safety, who gets hit? It's always public safety. So we really have to kind of dial that back and try to support our public safety, figure out how we're going to deal with it, because I think it's just really important that we do not have that much money at the county. And it just, you know, I'm not saying there's not other places to get it, but, you know, we have Melrose, special taxes and fees. We tax ourselves to death to get what we need. And so we have to understand that when we're having these big debates, really follow the dollars. Anyway, yes?
Well, everyone, I know the 6 cents, I know that part of it, but we're like the 3rd largest county in the state, 6th largest in the country. Why would we penalize an economic engine? And what could the county do different? Underfund education, whatever.
I can't figure out how the county could do different, and this is statute. This is statutory. So it can only be changed by legislation, and you won't get anybody in the state capitol to help Orange County. I'll just tell you that right now. So it's not, you know, it's just the way it is. I mean, you have Pat Bates now that's minority leader in the Senate. That's a huge thing. Even our own people don't like Orange County. I hate to say it, but we're like the California of the nation. You know, they either love us, they love to visit us, they love us, but they don't like us. And when we're good, they don't like us, and when we're bad, they don't like us. You know, it just is. Orange County has a very, you know, it's just a thing. They think we're all wealthy and we got plenty of money, so this is where to go. Anyway, yes.
But also it is the 2nd largest group of registered Democrats in the state.
Well, because there's kind of a thing on our voting rights and other things that we kind of do that Orange County really doesn't control. That's state policy.
But the approach has been, for the last decade that I've worked on this deal, was to take the increment and flatten it over time so no one loses any money, and over time it's equalized. So there's no sense having 65% of our money going to education.
Well, you try to get that through the legislature. There's not a lot of counties there, because another thing Jerry Brown was able to do, which is very, very skillful, very skillful. The man is a master politician. He's really good. I saw Brown won when I was like, what, 23, 26 years old or whatever it was when he was the first, and he was very different. Now he's a very skilled politician. You have to understand, he knows how to get what he wants done. He's a bit formidable. And because of that talent. But what he does when he does these things is, first he goes to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the biggest voting bloc in the legislature. They're huge by numbers. And then he picks off whoever else might have an issue. It's usually rural Republicans, LA, and he forms his coalition that way. So that's how he gets the votes to do what he wants to do. And if you go to the rural counties and tell them that you want an adjustment, you're probably not going to get it no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Only on the incremental increase.
Well, I can't speak to that. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you broad strokes and probably saying more than I should say on recorded, but it's true. I stand by it. I always try to give you the honest scoop. You know, it doesn't do me any good to come in here and do, like, you know, lie to you. It just is what it is. And I'm 65 years old, and, you know, it is what it is. Yes.
What about the gas tax? Because they're talking about
Yeah.
raising it again.
Okay, I've got something on there. Whoops. I thought you might ask. I do not have any control over this. I do not legislate. And what I'm hearing is that Governor Brown is having very much a hard time getting this increase. That there's 2 Democrats on the Senate side, which would be Roth out in Riverside, which makes a lot of sense because people drive a lot. And also the gentleman who is in the, believe it or not, my Orange County district is very much like a district in Northern California. It's extremely Democrat, which is up in Pleasanton and Dublin and all that. People think alike up there, but they vote differently. We have the same, like, very involved voters, very much of a strong voter turnout. When I was in the legislature, Nancy Skinner had that district. No, Nancy Skinner didn't. Yeah, Nancy. Well, that's a Berkeley district, but Joan Buchanan had that district. And I had my Orange County, and we both had similar voter turnout, similar voter education, similar levels of education, styles of living, but they vote very, very differently for their representatives. And so that person up there that now has that seat is also opposed because their people commute and travel and work, you know. So what it says is, what I've got here is that the Republican objection and some of the others' objection has been 30% of new tax revenues go to projects other than roads, including parks, workforce apprenticeship, rural bike lanes, boats, trains, and local planning grants. And the plan mandates that less than 5% of funds can go to traffic relief or lane expansion. So if you're up in Northern California in that area where you're commuting, you can understand why your representative doesn't support this. Yeah, it's a tough deal. I think I can't support it, obviously, as a person or as an elected, but I can tell you that he's just a couple votes short. I think he'll be probably pretty short in the Assembly. Everybody's running for re-election. I imagine that Sharon Quirk-Silva would have a hard time voting for this, maybe even Tom Daley, who are the Orange County Democrats in the Assembly. You know, it's going to be a tough bill to support. So that's what I can tell you. It's not, it's not about roads, I guess. Anyway, yes.
What about the carbon tax and everything that's funding the bullet train and other projects, you know, that you don't like?
Well, I'm not a big fan, and the only thing I can tell you is that I don't see that going away under this legislature or this. CARB is their own entity. The deal about forming, that's California Air Resources Board. When you form an agency and you don't really have any oversight over the agency, or you give up your oversight and you allow them to do all the regs and do everything, and you kind of give up your oversight, it takes it out of the legislature's hands. They do have some oversight ability, but California Air Resources Board does its own thing. But you have to remember that AB 32 is passed by our last quote-unquote Republican governor. I don't call him that, but he was Arnold. And so the bullet train as well. So, you know, it's like this was not a good thing, in my opinion, but it's there, and we kind of have to work with it. I'm not seeing the structure or the division in the state getting any more Republican. Anyway, yes. Yes.
I don't know if you can speak on this, if it relates to your division, your department. But with California potentially or becoming a sanctuary state, is that going to happen?
Well, that is Kevin DeLeon's bill. He is President Pro Tem of the Senate. I mean, I'm not sure what's really going on. I have talked to them, and I've said, why keep poking the bear? Why don't we just leave this alone? Nobody really wants to mess with California, because to be honest, across the nation, even though we have 55 Congress people. The rest of the states all have 2 senators like us, and they don't want to deal with us, and they don't care about us. We don't matter. But if we start doing these things, we may come into focus and lose funding. And that's hence the need for all of these, or the need, perceived need, for all of these extra tax measures that are floating around. They want to be sure that if Trump pulls funding from California, that they can tax y'all and get it.
That was my question I was gonna ask. Can Trump hold the funds?
Oh, well, we had, I think I figured out, we had, our general fund budget, I think, is about 170 billion now, maybe. I don't track the budget really closely. It was 103 at one time when I was in the legislature, so I know it's grown. A lot of that is because of the Medicaid expansion. When we did the Obamacare, they gave us 3 years of funding, and then it gradually went away. Now it's state funded. So I think a lot of that is that. We were expecting a 7% increase annually in the state general fund. But about, I think last check, 358 billion is from federal dollars. So yeah, it could hurt. That's why, I'm not sure. I think the governor is doing a good job at dialing that back. He's trying to dial things back. I think that Anthony Rendon, who's in our state legislature, he's our assembly leader, started out with a lot of Trump bashing and has said that there's other things to do now and he wants to get on with things. So I think that, there's some political points and posturing to be made, but I also think there's some risk in it. Just depends on how it goes. And I have heard, or I've read, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I've read it and I've heard it in the news, that the Border Patrol is not picking up as many people, or crosses across the border have dropped. And so what I would probably think would happen is if we decide to do sanctuary state rather than pulling money, we'll just have more ICE agents everywhere. I think that's what'll happen. I think they'll be going into businesses with searches and stuff like that, which is not really what we want, because we don't want everybody rounded up. We just want, the purpose of this was to get the criminals. But I've heard that when they go in with a warrant for a criminal, if in fact you're living in that house, they will take you too. So, it just is. As long as they're there, they do a clean sweep and ask for everybody's. But that's what I've read. So that's about as much as I can say, and I've probably gotten myself in a real noose here, but I want you to know what's going on firsthand. Yes?
Yeah, about the road tax. When did they start using it on the roads?
Well, that's always a big question. See, we ask that here, but that's up to the legislature, and this is all legislated, and we have a very, it's just not a road-friendly legislature or state, and that's all. Steve knows that's all combined with the housing policy and everything else that goes on.
Does that tax go into the general fund?
Some of it does, but most of its bonds, general fund has very little transportation dollars, very little. Very little. It used to be in the 1960s, there was a huge chunk for infrastructure under Jerry Brown's dad, Edmund G. But under Edmund G. Jr., I think he kind of realigned things more to the social service area. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I think, she covered a lot of areas that are probably not within her sphere of the Board of Equalization, but we appreciate the extra information. So with that, I'll just conclude with a few announcements of our upcoming meetings. Next week we have our business, or maybe 2 weeks actually, we have our business luncheon, Make Business Connections with Style. Our speaker will be Kimberly Gerber. That's going to be at the Bahia Corinthian Yacht Club from 11:30 to 1:30. Our Sunset Mixer this month is going to be at the Back Bay Bistro at the Newport Dunes. It's a great facility if you've never been there. It's right on the water. We're going to precede the mixer, though, if you're a chamber member, with our annual meeting from 5 to 5:30, and that's when we elect our new board of directors, and takes about 5 minutes, but some housekeeping work that we have to do. So that's Thursday, April 27th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Back Bay Bistro. Our next Chamber Connect luncheon, these are small luncheons of 10 people at a table. Networking luncheon will be at Sushi Roku over at Fashion Island. If you haven't been there, the food's excellent. It's a good opportunity to get in there for lunch. That's May 2nd from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And as I mentioned earlier, Kim Brandt here, our Community Development Director, is going to be our next speaker at Wake Up Newport. That meeting will be on May 4th, again here in the Friends Room. And as it turns out, Back Bay Bistro will be our food provider. So I know last time they came, they had some elaborate setup. I think they cooked Eggs Benedict or something. I don't guarantee that this time, but hopefully it'll be something good. And one other event, actually the students might be interested in this, our Scholarship Awards Dinner. Maybe some of you are being honored there at our Scholarship Awards Dinner. It's going to be on April 26th at the Radisson. We're going to honor the top 35 student scholars from Corona Del Mar, Harbor, and Sage Hill schools, as well as the Teachers of the Year. And it's a great event from 6 to 8 on April 26th. And we got a great speaker whose name escapes me now, but he's a social media expert over at UCI. He does TEDx talks and things like that. I've watched a couple of his videos. They're very engaging and interesting to watch. So thank you all for coming. If you're not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, you should be. Please give us a call. We'd love to sign you up. And you can find out about any of these events on our website at newportbeach.com. Have a great day.